The fathers and some mothers of the First Enlightenment stated that reason was the primary source and legitimacy for authority, as they moved away from superstition and other to reason and legitimacy. By 1750, the Scots were indeed the most literate people in all of Europe, 75% literacy rate. And why? Because we produced at that time, just as we have the opportunity to produce today at Queen Margaret University, the great thought leaders of today and tomorrow. And who were these great thought leaders of the Scottish Enlightenment? Well, certainly Francis Hutcheson from Glasgow, who argued that the greatest happiness for the greatest numbers is the goal of every human being. David Hume, the philosopher, economist, historian, and to the sadness of many of our students, the father of the modern essay that they have to write so often. James Hutton, who discovered that in studying the Salisbury Crags, which rest just outside my lounge window in South Edinburgh, that there was no vestige of a beginning, no prospect of an end to human life because of the discovery of those crags and the patterns that they represented. The geologist, chemist, experimental farmer, and of course Adam Smith. The other day I was standing in front of the Scottish Parliament. A young man came up to me and he said, "Excuse me, do you know where Adam Smith's tomb is?" And I said, "Yes, it's right up the street in the Canongate Kirk." And he went, "Oh boy! You would have thought Michael Jackson was up there." I said, "Hold it, what do you do?" He said, "I'm an economist." Well, to an economist, Adam Smith is Michael Jackson, right? And away he went. Well, Adam Smith, the moral philosopher, the pioneer of political economics, who said, we must do well by doing good. And we can only do well by doing good. And of course, rising above all of these, in my opinion, is the great bard of our land, Robert Burns. And Burns was an eventologist. Now I know my scholarly friends are asking for evidence. Well, let me give you some evidence. First, he loved food and drink. He loved social events. He loved community, like you. And he loved, well, as you suggested, everybody. Yes, and often simultaneously, right? Magnus Magnusson, in the New Statesman, described these fathers of the First Enlightenment as follows. They were a closely knit group who mostly knew one another. Many were very close friends. Some were related by marriage. All were politically conservative, but intellectually radical. They were courteous and accessible. They were stimulated by enormous curiosity, optimism about human progress. They had dissatisfaction with age-old theoretical disputes. And together, they created a cultural golden age. So what are, using Gladwell's theory and Wolfram, what are the common denominators, the outliers from the thought leaders of the Scottish Enlightenment? Well, certainly an insatiable intellectual curiosity, collegiality, and one scholar argued eccentricity. Now, oftentimes the term eccentricity is used in a negative manner, but in fact, in mathematics, it's defined as a measure of how much the conic section deviates from being circular. It's quite straightforward. It's a deviation from the established pattern or the norm. And Robert Louis Stevenson perhaps knew it best, this great son of Edinburgh, when he said in the 19th century, "This profusion of eccentricities, Edinburgh, this dream and masonry and living rock, is not some drop scene in a theater, but it is a city in the world of reality." And that was his city in the 19th century. So what are the most certain steps towards this next enlightenment? Well, I would argue tonight that they're wrapped very tightly in the mission and the vision of our Queen Margaret University. And for those of you not familiar, this is our beautiful tartan designed by Kinloch Anderson for the university. Our principal describes this vision in 4 terms, which I'm going to embrace in eventological terms tonight: interprofessional, interdisciplinary, industry relevant, and international, woven into our fabric. Well, event studies is certainly interprofessional, in that we work very closely with our colleagues in the schools of business, social sciences, creative industries, and health. Interdisciplinary, in that our theories come directly from the established disciplines of anthropology, psychology, sociology, and others. It's certainly industry relevant because day by day we work in the economic field, human rights, with socially significant research that we're conducting. And finally, international. In the last 2 years, the International Center for the Study of Planned Events, in addition to working with many of the major festivals in Edinburgh, has delivered programs in Bulgaria, Canada, Japan, Norway, Russia, Sweden, Trinidad, and even the USA.